Hey, I'm JR Lay. Welcome back to another episode of the Level Up Business Podcast. Joining me for today's conversation is Jason Sipple. Jason is an entrepreneur who helps 6- and 7-figure fathers solve cash flow problems as the founder and CEO of Will of Wealth. And today we're going to unpack his entrepreneurial journey and why it's important for Jason and really all entrepreneurs to create a vision of the future that's even bigger than the present. And when you create that vision that's bigger than the present and combine that with discipline, essentially developing a discipline around discipline, both of those together, vision and discipline, provides a path for you to level up your business as an entrepreneur. But first, I want to give you an opportunity to get a free copy of my best-selling book, Banking on Change. There's definitely a lot of things that have changed, are changing, and will continue to change as we move further into the age of AI. Banking on Change is the leader's guide to help you as an entrepreneur achieve exponential growth in the age of AI. So text me 832-549-5792, and I will send you a copy of my best-selling book, Banking on Change, so that you can continue to level up your mind, level up your marketing, level up your sales, and level up your business. Welcome to the show, Jason. It is good to share time with you today, buddy.
It's amazing to be here, JR. It's fun to be here. Since I met you, I'm like, that guy's interesting. He's got a lot of cool thoughts, and he's got a lot of value that he's sharing in the world. And you being a father of many, I've seen your vision boards and the things you've done. So there's a lot of synergy, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, I'm glad you are here. And this idea of vision, I want to start off there today because, if I reflect on my own entrepreneurial journey, I get the greatest breakthroughs. I experience the greatest growth when I create a vision that's far bigger than anything that I can really perceive today. On the flip side, I have found that I experience the greatest pain and really, unfortunately, I put pain on my family, on my wife and my kids when my vision starts to shrink and I get stuck in the gap, which I use as an acronym, griping about problems. Tell me about vision and why it's important and how you set a vision for yourself as an entrepreneur, but also how that interplays with being a father and being a husband as well. Because there's definitely some interplay here. Because I think about my old self, and I was so focused on the entrepreneurial vision that my vision for my marriage and my family shrunk. And I was not aligned. I was not imbalanced.
And that takes a lot of courage to share that. Like you realize you've grown and you've seen where you came from and where you are today. And you weighed in. You took some time to weigh in. I would say, I think Dan Sullivan says it best, where as long as our future is bigger than our past, we'll never be old. And I think about that. Like I think about people that are glory days, Bruce Springsteen, talking about high school still, talking about what it was 20, 30, 40 years ago, whatever high school was. And it kind of makes me smile a little bit. There's a lot of truth in that. Like if that was your best days and they're not ahead of you, then kind of what are we doing? Like, why aren't we more intentional? I used to get a little bit upset, James. It took me 46 years to finally find something that I was passionate enough that aligned with everything I believed in and feels like that was my calling. Like, because I had the ability to have talent and do various things. Like I was a professional medical illustrator, used to draw anatomy drawings for a decade. That's what I went to school for. I turned a hobby into a career and then went into staffing. And so it was just I showed up to work and to do my best, but I didn't have a vision. I didn't have a vision at that point.
So let's unpack that because I think it's important, for those who are watching and listening. You said something key here. It took you 46 years to realize that you were living life without a vision. What happened and what was life like back then for you? Just not even as an entrepreneur per se, but just as a human being.
I think your audience is going to identify with this. I know a lot of our how we met in a mastermind, right? In a great mastermind. I think a lot of the people in that mastermind will also resonate with this. When you're an achiever, you go out and achieve and conquer, and especially a guy, right? We're going out to hunt, we're going out to figure stuff out. We want to go out and provide our family. We want to protect our family. So we go out and we get the stuff done. And it might not have a vision attached. It might be just like, I need to go do this so I can take care of my family. And so there's all the different stages of life till I got to that 46-year-old point. But it was very much I achieved because I had to prove to myself I could do it. Or I had to prove to someone else when they told me I couldn't do it that I could do it. And it was always empty. It was very much driven by stress, by worry. I realized a couple of years ago that stress and worry were my drivers. I mean, they drove me through my first 4 Ironman. Like, I went to a surgeon, had back surgery at 26, James. And you know what he told me after I went and said, "Hey, doc, I feel great. I don't feel like I'm 90 anymore. What can I do?" And he goes, "Well, Jason, you've got the back of a 60-year-old. You should probably not run or not lift." And in my mind, I just thought, that's not my life sentence. I will do what I want. And people started asking me, "Hey, we should do a MS tour. What's that?" "Oh, that sounds cool." I went and bought a bike on eBay. "Hey, we should do a half marathon." "I hate running." "Okay, that's cool." And it eventually led to I did a half Ironman and I suffered. It took me like 7 hours. It was brutal. It was on Disney property. I'm like, this is not the happiest place on earth. I just want to crawl into a hole and die, right? And I got done and my friend goes, "Sip, a real man would do an Ironman." And I was like, "F you, let's go." And we signed up. And that was back in 2000. So everything was about the reason I'm sharing all of this is to give context that when you're driven by stress and worry, fear and doubt, and you feel like you're always on the precipice of like failing or you're going to get fired, so you just keep achieving, keep doing more, and you keep doing more, there is no happiness in that. There is no appreciation of the glory of the journey.
Dude, like, I want to pause you on this point right here, because that being driven by stress, fear, anxiety, uncertain, doubt, you are like hitting me right here in the heart, because that was my life, man. And perhaps, if I'm going to be very honest with you, it still might be to a degree, although I'm working every day to let go of that. It's not easy, and I think a lot of that for me was just upbringing, family of origin, early experiences. It's like we got stuck, not we, I got stuck in this survival paradigm, thinking about Hawkins' scale of consciousness.
Yes.
You familiar with that?
Yes, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about power versus force. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And now I didn't have the awareness. Like, when I started out as an entrepreneur, I was 20 years old. And I started simply for one reason: to impress a girl who told me that my punk rock band sucked and to do something with my life. I had no vision. I didn't dream about becoming an entrepreneur. I wanted to be a meteorologist. I wanted to go chase tornadoes. I wanted to go either that or go fly jets in the Air Force or the Navy. And the recruiter, when I was 18 years old, said, "Son, you see those glasses on your face?" I said, "You're never going to fly a jet." And like, dreams were like crushed, because that's all I wanted to do from the time I was about 5 or 6 years old. And so I got into college and I started this punk rock band, thinking like, and I was always into music, but there was this girl, she's like, and she was so sweet. She came to all my shows and everything. And one day she set me down. We were sophomore in college, and she said, "I just want to be honest with you. Your band sucks, and you need to do something with your life." And she came from an entrepreneurial family. So I was like, okay, I'll start a business. Maybe that will impress her. And sure enough, 4 years later, we got married, had a couple of kids. But because I was being driven, not from a place of abundance and hope and a bigger future, it was more of like this, I don't know how you like hunting, just going out and grinding.
Yeah. And
story
there's a lot of our society that identifies with that hustle culture. Just go harder, just do more, just get up earlier. Like, "Oh, you're getting up at the 5 a.m. club? I'm going to start a 4 a.m. club." Like, see Mark Wahlberg, "I've got a 4 a.m. club now." It's like, come on. Like if you get up at 4 a.m. because that's your peaceful time and that's how it works for you, that's awesome.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for other reasons, then maybe find out what the reasons were. The one thing I would offer you that's really worked for me and anyone listening is come up with 3 words. Like I started this in 2022
Mm.
where I realized that stress was my driver. And you have self-awareness around this, JR. So I'm not worried about you. But I realized that stress was my driver. Fear was my driver. I could do pretty amazing things, driven by, achieve at a certain level. But that's force. Like on
Yeah.
the Hawkins scale, that's force. And so I realized, I just thought, what if everything was really easy, effortless, and abundant?
Mm.
And so I started writing that in my notebook every day. Forget the like how many outcomes there are. I wrote easy, effortless, and abundant. Like anything I was doing was easy, effortless, and abundant. And I lived that all 2022. In 2023, I came up with new words. I was turning 50. My ego got involved. So I made them adventure, impact. And then I had another like driving word. But I realized partway through the year when I was working through injuries, and I met you during this year, right? Was that I had to add patience. Like I haven't had patience. And so the adventure impact had me do some crazy stuff like bungee jumping when I'm afraid of heights, jumping off a mountain with a guy who doesn't speak my language, strapped to my back with a parachute kind of thing, right? Like paragliding and like stuff I
Right.
never would have done. But because of those words, it reminded me like, hey, I'm scared. I should do this. I will grow because I'll do this. And so like I have words for this year, which are patience, empathy, and fun. All
Mm.
things, I'm not that funny, like surprisingly. So I try to add things in to be the things that I need most. And so I would offer you, like, if it is stress and worry and is drive you, then why not just have it easy and effortless and abundant when you feel that? It's a
Yes.
choice.
Yes. I like the idea of when it comes to vision, distilling down to some words, a word, a phrase, 3 words. Like last year, and I've been doing this now. Last year, it was be disciplined to do difficult things.
Hmm.
And I think about the progress that I've made on my own entrepreneurial journey, literally shifting an entire business model, and making that leap. But to that point, this new path has been easy, effortless, and fun. Where historically it was more, I would say, that force. I was forcing a lot of things. And it took being in a mastermind, platinum elevated, that we were both in, to gain that level of awareness. And I've been in coach for 7 years, strategic coach with Dan, but never really had someone call me out on my own. I'm not going to say self-limiting beliefs, but just getting in the way of myself.
Hmm.
And so this year it's alignment plus action equals total transformation. So
And
I want to,
may I give you a little feedback on that I'm hearing just a little bit?
yeah,
I want you to hug yourself, my brother. I want you to give yourself a hug, pat yourself on the back, give yourself high fives. Like a little like love's first, right? Like love is a very, very high vibration. So like even the words I wrote down, to do difficult things, be disciplined to do difficult things. That sounds very driving. It's
mm,
awesome. It guides you. So hey, I'm gonna do this. I've got this many podcast episodes. This is the way. It's like Star Wars.
mm,
This is the way. I have
yeah,
spoken. Right?
right,
Like I have spoken. This is how it is. But there's a point in there where it's like, okay, this is the way, but why is this the way? Who am I serving? How am I loving myself? How am I building my vision, my my big purpose around what's most important to me? And for you and I believe it's our family. It's our legacy, it's our kids, it's our wife, it's our amazing partners who are way better than we are, but it's that ability to have a little bit more self-awareness, because I have this vision like for founding fathers. That's May I share the vision?
please,
So
absolutely.
the vision I came up with, that really, because I watched this a peer of mine speak, and I was like, that's it. Like he has a mission, and he's inviting everybody to this mission, and the people that come, they're raving fans. And you always hear that from Tony Robbins, from all, Dan Sullivan. Our partners, our clients are raving fans. They're people that want to be around what we're able to offer, right?
Yep.
And they're going to keep coming back because we're helping. We're really just giving our best and sharing our journey. And so I watch them. I'm like, that's cool. How do I tie in all my passions to what I'm teaching now? Because what I'm teaching now is just a piece of the big vision. But my mission of Founding Fathers is to inspire and educate and prepare 10 million fathers and their families to avoid financial slavery, to live their legacy, and to make a positive impact in their community. Now, 2 years ago, when I did my 10-year vision, my 3-year picture, my 1-year plan, and my 90-day process, that looked like me having one of the largest, whole life agencies, infinite banking practitioner group, like a whole bunch of Navy SEALs at this highest level. And I thought, is that really what I want? Is that really the amount of responsibility I want? And I don't think that it is. I think it's really finding the right partnerships, really being that interdependent that Stephen Covey talks about, and just finding the right peers that are doing the same thing and sharing best practices and having that drive forward to really rebuild America from the ground up. Like,
I want to pause because you just unpack something I think is very practical for those watching and listening to roll back to. You had a perspective, you had a vision, but then you had a shift with that. And then B, let's get real practical here because you said 10-year vision, 3-year picture, 1 year
plan.
and then 90-day.
Yep.
Unpack those frameworks here for us.
Yeah, so your 10-year vision, this is something that our chief master, right, Chief Master Neri, has taught us being on the mat, being in Taekwondo, right? Which you talk about discipline, that's a great place to go and continually practice self-discipline. But he talks about your 10-year vision being like a fuzzy picture. Like you're not quite sure where you're going. You can kind of imagine what you've had to become, what you've had to learn to be there. Who are you around? Maybe where do you live? Do you have a second home? Who's around you? Who are your friends? What are you doing? How do you spend your days? How do you spend your time off? It's fuzzy though, but you kind of get the idea. There's not a lot of numbers, measuring, and monitor attached to it. It's kind of there. Your 3-year, you're dialing back in a little bit more. Your picture, it's a little clearer. That's not that far away. You're 36 months away, so it's not that far. So maybe you have some numbers attached to it. Maybe you know how much you're earning, what you're doing, like what your business is really serving, who's your clients are. It's more detailed. Your 1-year picture is bringing back like, what is my outcomes for this year? What are the 3 things I'm driving towards, whether it's financially, spiritually, right, physically? Like, what are my main objectives, my 3 things? And then your 90-day just brings you back to your stepping stones. Like, what am I doing to get to those things? What are the actions I'm taking on a daily basis, consistent, persistent? What does that look like? That's a fun exercise. It's a fun exercise to visit over and over again. I look at some of my things. I'm like, yeah, I still want that. Or, wow, I hit that. But hey, I don't want that anymore. Like that, I don't see myself traveling that much, speaking as much as I thought, unless my family's coming with me. That's one of the things I learned last year. Like we had the hurricane coming through Milton, and I stand for dads, and my whole team's in Nashville. They're like, "Hey, are you coming?" I'm like, I don't know. I'm either coming with my whole family and we're driving up there, or
Right.
I'm not, because I'm not
Yeah.
bailing on them when a hurricane's coming through.
Okay. I'm going to pause you because I did 2008 Hurricane Ike. And see, this is the person that I was. 2008 Hurricane Ike came into Houston. My wife and I had been married for 2 years. I was such a jerk. That's a nice way to put it. I think you could probably go harsher and just call I was an asshole. And what happened was, Ike was coming through. And at the time we were hosting all of these bank and credit union websites. And so I was like, I got to fly to Dallas. I gotta have, sustainability, contingency plan. I left my wife in Houston, went to Dallas, and I'm literally sitting there. I'm like, what are you doing? And so I was like, I need a big truck because I was like, I'm going to drive back. And this is not like a heroic valiant thing. This is like, I just maybe realized what I was doing was not the right thing. So I rented this big like Dodge Ram pickup truck, drove back into Houston the day that Hurricane Ike was coming in,
Hmm.
got to the house about maybe 4 hours before it like made landfall. And yeah, so when you're talking about your narrative, and I'm going to give it like a juxtaposition to where I was, I'm totally aligned with you now, man.
I love that you see that path. I mean, go look at one of my LinkedIn things I wrote a couple of weeks ago. Like it starts off saying I'm a jerk, I'm a this, I'm a that, because those things were all true. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
super selfish racing Ironman. They call them Iron Widows for a reason. Like I remember getting
Mm.
ready for like a short race, just kind of like a training race over in St. Pete. It was like Olympic distance,
Like a sprint.
St. Anthony's Olympic distance try. And I just wanted to test a wetsuit. So I went and got in the water. There's one other person on the beach. I go in the water, I swim. It's my wife's birthday weekend, by the way. I'm dragging her to a triathlon. So, trust me, I've been there. I come out of the water, and my wife, in her cute little Ecuadorian accent, goes, "Mi amor, what's an Iron Widow?" And I'm like, "Where is she? Where is the person that told you this?" Like, it was all like, "Oh my God, now you know what the truth is of training 20 hours a week, working 50 plus hours a week, and how selfish I was going after my own goals." I don't know that. I don't know that. Like now, I will create time freedom to be able to do the things I want to do because it's more important this to be with a family than it is for me to go get my goals. But I was in a different stage. I was in my 30s then. Now I'm 50.
I think that right there is something that for those watching and listening, if we can either help prevent pain or help you just realize where you might be today, my wife was not even part. I'm being 100% honest. Was probably was not part of my bigger vision a decade or so ago.
Yeah.
I was so just focused on, we'll just call it J.R. Lay Inc. that nothing else mattered. And so I think, bringing all of this back to full circle, when we think about setting a bigger vision than we have today, like you said, Dan's quote is, always make your future bigger than your past.
Mm-hmm.
It's more than just about the vision for the business. It's including those that are closest to us, our family, our spouses, our kids. And that's something I know that you have done. You have integrated this idea of a vision board, an action board to really take this 10-year vision, 3-year picture, 1 year all the way down and make it real, and visualize it. What was that experience like doing that with your family to include them in the vision?
Well, thanks to you. I mean, you were one of the people that inspired me. It was you and one other gentleman who came into one of the dad's coaching groups I was part of, right? And he talked about a river of values, continuing on through his family. But he also talked about what we're talking about. He talked about, being a multi-million-dollar real estate investor, but like his life with I think he had 4 kids, was his marriage was failing. There was no communication. Everything was about achieving. There was no family involvement. There was no value based decisions. And so I did the exercise based on what I saw you post about your family. I'm like, that is cool. And then when I
Yeah.
saw him, I just picked a date. Like, I'll offer anybody, if you guys just write this down, this is the most valuable thing I'll say. Promise. Pick a date. Pad. Pick a date you're starting. Just pick a date. You don't have to know how you're getting there. Pick a date. And so I said to my wife, Patty, I'm like, "Mi amor, we're going to do this family vision setting. We're going to do this value setting, get our family values nailed down. Find us a staycation in Kissimmee. Like, we're in Orlando, right? So there's a million places to go stay. I'm like, find us a big enough place with a kitchen so we can cook for ourselves and eat healthy. And let's go for the weekend with the boys. They won't know it or like what we're doing. Let's just do it." And we did. And I had no idea how to do it. Like the first day, I'm like, okay, vision boards. How do we do this? We brought as many magazines as we could find, markers, boards. And we watch a Jim Rohn video about, having your future be a magnet. And so I had him watch a Jim Rohn movie, or Jim Rohn 20-25 minute YouTube thing. And then I had him do Tony Robbins, uh, his priming to really
Mm-hmm.
put you in breathing and energy and set the state and hack your, your neurons, right? To hack your brain. And I look
Let's,
over and my
let's
10
pause
year
on
old
this.
doing the chicken dance and making faces at us as we're doing the Tony Robbins breathing. But it was fun. Like, at, we're a reflection. Like, what comes back to us is a reflection of our inner world. And there's so many different perceptions, right, of what that looks like. If that was me a couple of years ago when I wanted to control and make sure we all breathed right and we close and we visualize, but I get the one flapping like a chicken, pecking his head while we're all breathing silly. And you start laughing. It was fun. It was a fun weekend. They hem and hawed. It wasn't perfect. I'm just saying this because people have to see the truth of how this really goes when you're trying to lead your family into the unknown. I had no flipping clue how to do this. And the next day, the same thing. They're like, oh man, again? Really? We're going to do this again, Dad? It wasn't easy, but we did it. And now we sat down like a month ago and we did the values again. I said, hey, let's look at this list from Garrett Gunderson about setting our family, constitution. And here's a bunch of words. And like, we already wrote ours down. I'm like, yeah, but we all think they mean different things.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a list. Let's go through this and let's just see if we're really on the right page before I print something out and put it on the wall.
Hey, it's JR Lay. Quick message to help you apply some of what Jason is sharing about the importance of elevating your vision so that you can level up your mind, level up your marketing, and level up your sales as a B2B entrepreneur. That's why I want to give you a copy of my best-selling book, Banking Unchanged. This is the leader's guide to achieving exponential growth in the age of AI. Now, you could go to Amazon, you could buy a copy for $30, or you can send me a text right now on my cell phone. It's 832-549-5792. And I will send you a copy of Banking Unchanged that includes the biggest lessons I have learned as a B2B entrepreneur myself, studying the intersection of marketing, sales, technology, and human behavior for over 20 years. Inside the book, you're going to get practical strategic frameworks, dozens of practical strategic frameworks and thinking tools that are proven to help you level up your mind, level up your marketing, and level up your sales. And as a result, you will level up your business and your life. Now, let's get back to the conversation with Jason. I want to come back to the point of priming because I think that's a key part in, it's a matter of perspective. I understand what you're talking about when it comes to priming and literally getting yourself into a physical, emotional, energetic state at a higher peak
Yes.
than
It's great.
just going into an experience like this on the day in, day out. And even to the point to where you talk to your wife saying, let's book a staycation, let's change our environment. All of this is important when it comes to establishing an even bigger vision for the future. So let's just roll back to your point around priming for those who might not have the context that you and I have when it comes to vision casting, and why being in a prime state, being in a peak state is so critically important to cast a vision from that peak state as opposed to the everyday normal state.
No, it's a beautiful, and for all the achievers listening, listen, I started meditating like 10 years ago and I've tried so many different ways. And I thought for so long, what's wrong with me? I can't get it right. I thought there was a right way to do it. So primings, and you can look it up, Tony Robbins priming. It's like a 15-minute thing. He brings you through breath work because the first thing you're trying to do is you're trying to take yourself out of your head and put yourself in your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You need to take yourself out of your head physically. Like when you work out, when you have those endorphins released, breathing can do that. You can do that by jumping up and down. You can do that by breathing, do some push-ups, but you want to be in a peak state, like James mentioned. Then after that, you start thinking of things that you're grateful for. Go back to, because when you have gratitude on your mind and on your heart, you can't hold another emotion. So go back to 3 places that you're most grateful for and see yourself. It could be yesterday. It could be something 10 years ago. It could be you arriving after coming back from Dallas in the big old Ram, right? Whatever it was grateful for in that moment, and just see it, be it, feel it. And then you're taking energy from above, right? And you're running it through your body. You're connecting to the source. And you can imagine that in different colors, whatever works for you, however you think. And then eventually you're sending that energy out to others, out to your neighbors, out to people you haven't met, out to people. Like, that's something I pray on every night. Like, please God, take care of our family, take care of this person, take care of people I know that are struggling, but also
Mhm.
take care of the people I don't know yet that I will, and take people I won't ever know. Like, take care of each other. And then finally it's going and just seeing your future, seeing 3 things that you've achieved as if you've already done it.
Yes.
And so in 15 minutes, it takes you from maybe you were worried about, like, what are you eating for dinner? When do I have to pick up the kids? How am I going to get all this work done? Which, by the way, you'll never get it all done. There's no way you're getting all your stuff done. So just let that stuff go now. Like, you're not getting everything done on your to-do list. Pick the 1 or 2 things and then celebrate yourself and find God hand in that, or find some kind of beauty, something to be grateful for, and then go from there.
And now you have connected it out back to what we were discussing before of how to get out of that survival paradigm of fear, uncertainty, doubt, anxiety. It's almost, this is a practical way too to outwit the devil. I'm thinking about Napoleon Hill's book. A lot of people hear Napoleon Hill and they think and Grow Rich, and I'm like, yeah, it's a good book. I mean, Outwitting the Devil, I read it in 2017, and it was, once again, you get perspective and books and messages at right times and right moments in your life, and this was the right moment to read Outwitting the Devil. And to your point, when it comes to priming and being grateful, for those watching or listening, I want to give you a framework, and you can do this at the end of every day. You could start your day, end your week. We do this with our kids, and the framework is what's been going well. And well is an acronym for where have you been winning. So that's past perspective, bit of gratitude, three wins, if you will. What are you excited and energized about right now in the present moment? So just looking around at everything going on and finding something of positive perspective. The first L is learning. What have you learned? So to connect past and present experiences and look for key insights, patterns. And learning could be something that you heard. It could be something from this podcast, even. It could be something that you have watched. It could be something that you have read, or it could just be something that you have lived. And then finally, the second L is looking. What are you looking forward to going forward into the future? Back to the point, Jason, that you and I are talking about to Dan, is always make your future bigger than your past. Now this is important because you wrote something on LinkedIn that I think is a great segue, where you noted, and I'm going to quote you, quote, here's some counterintuitive growth advice. Do nothing and think. Take your to-do list and your vision board and just stop.
Yes.
And you said that post before we hit record came from a bit of an inspired place. Tell me what was going on when you wrote this, because once again, I think we're talking about achieving as entrepreneurs. And that's one of, the things that, it could be a strength, but also can be an Achilles heel as well. Why must we just create space and time to ponder, to wonder, to just think, to just be?
You mentioned Napoleon Hill earlier, right? You Outwitting Devil, amazing book, but you also mentioned Think and Grow Rich. It doesn't say go out and do a bunch of stuff and get rich. When you research and you learn a little bit about Henry Ford, he was notorious for just sitting there doing nothing. And I thought, with all the things that I am looking to do with the mission and how much stuff I put on my plate constantly, well, where's that space to think about my 10-year vision? And I was, 15, 16 days into this year already. I'm like, I haven't even stopped to pause, to reflect. And I had and Patty had just gone to Ecuador with Connor down there supporting her family down there. And so I was like, this is the perfect time. I can get all this stuff done. And so I had stacked my Saturday. It was fully packed. And I looked at it, I'm like, well, I don't have family day tomorrow. I'm just going to move everything to Sunday. And I just walked around picking stuff up, thinking, laughing about stuff, thinking about Trump talking about the Gulf of America. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Sounds kind of good. I wonder if that could happen. And then started researching like the last presidents back in the 1800s or Roosevelt, the turn of the century, that actually looked to expand our nation. like we did with the Louisiana Purchase and Alaska and all those things. Like there's been a long time since we've looked at changing. So I just started thinking, and it made me really, really happy. And I found myself being super present. And I just started writing, and it was a little bit fun because I love Dr. Seuss. So I used to read to Connor every day. We have a giant Dr. Seuss book, right? And so I would read them all that, and I was like, "Well, you think, you thunk, what I think, I think," like. And so I just started doing it. I think I wrote "think" and "thunk" like 37 times in the little thing, but it was really a very connected, and that's part of the journey. Like this is a very much a spiritual journey being an entrepreneur, and I
Mm,
think the more that we rise in our consciousness, the more we realize that nothing is really that important. It's very important, but not important at all at the same time.
yeah.
It's very easy to let go a lot of that ego stuff.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason Ryan Holiday tattooed "ego is the enemy" on his arm. It wasn't because he wanted to sell more books.
Right. It's a reminder for sure. And I'm in negotiations right now with my wife to get my second tattoo. My first tattoo is actually it's her name over my heart uh in Arabic because she's Lebanese, and her mom, she wrote it out. We put it over the got it tattooed on my 24th birthday right after we got married. And but my second tattoo, and trying to still negotiate this one, is I want one right here on my forearm. Small, not big. 2 words. Memento mori.
Hmm.
It's Latin for remember your death. And you're right. This entrepreneurial journey is definitely something that can provide spiritual growth. I was actually heard something from Pedro's Koulian recently where he said if you want to like just maximize your personal growth, go work out and go down the path of entrepreneurism. Like those are 2 things that will just massively transform you as a human being. And that's another point here when we think about and back to your point about thinking, metacognition, if you will. Um, and thinking is one of the 4 seasons I wrote about in Banking on Change, because there's a season to learn, there's a season to think, there's a season to do, and there's a season to review and reflect.
Hmm.
And if we can like the 4 seasons, if we think about spring, that is a season of essentially learning. We're planting new seeds. Summer is the season of thinking. It's hot. We just need to just pause and ponder, right? Fall, we reap the benefits of our learning and our thinking, and we're doing. And then finally, like winter, we need rest. We need recovery. And that's where we can review and reflect in that last season. And if we can increase the cycle of learning, thinking, doing, and reviewing, we can increase our own growth cycles. But to bridge the gap, if you will, between seeing things, learning, and thinking to then actually applying them, doing them, and then creating the space and time to review,
Hmm.
it's the learning and the thinking that creates we'll call it a higher level of awareness, knowing. It's the doing and the reviewing that leads to the growing. There's a gap, there's a chasm in the middle, though, to move from knowing to growing. And we'll call it the knowing is the awareness, and the growing, it's the transformation. But in the middle, we have to have the commitment. And so you have awareness plus commitment. That's the path to transformation right there. It's the commitment, though, in the middle, I think is the hardest. And it's something that I want to round out our conversation and begin to wrap up. Something that I know is important to you is discipline, because you can have the best vision in the world. And I mean, just to vision cast puts you in a whole different area, because research from Brian Tracy that I found when writing Banking on Change, only like 3%, less than 3% of Americans have written goals, and less than 1% review and write those goals on a daily basis. But then where does discipline come into this? Because you are, I know, very disciplined. You do difficult things. You talked about the Ironman. You talk about I even know you cold plunge. I cold plunge. Why is it important to to be disciplined to then achieve that vision? And what do you practically do to discipline yourself, to discipline your body so that you can discipline your mind? Because the mind, I think, is where so much of this, quote unquote, this battle takes place.
It all is the mind. It's a mind, and it's an energetic journey, though. I think it sounds a little woo woo, but the more I go down the path, the more I explore my rules. Like I read Carol Dweck's Mindset, was probably the book that set me on my growth, my spiritual slash, personal development journey about a decade ago. And I said, oh my God, that's why I'm always trying to achieve. Like, that's why I got straight A's through college and thought it meant something and stayed in and didn't go out, even though my school was no fun. But it was still like, it was very much about seeing the pattern and then being, I guess, courageous enough to saying, hey, I don't really like that about myself. And I don't really think that's who I am. And I think I adopted that from someone else. Like, I think I became an achiever because I knew that if I performed athletically, which I was a good athlete, and if I knew if I had good grades, well, then who's going to complain and have confrontation? Like, I was very confrontation adverse. And so I kind of tracked it all the way back to being a kid, and that set it forward. So when it comes to our energy, what you're talking about discipline, there's the discipline I do now, like going in the plunge for 66 days. I just picked a day. I saw one of our peers doing it. I'm like, oh, okay. I've been avoiding going in that 39-degree water for a month now.
Like a plague?
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And I just started doing it, right? And now I'm on day, like, I think it's 53 or 54 today, and it's like 39 degrees out, and it'll be 39 degrees in the plunge. I don't want to do it, but it's 3.5 minutes to prove to myself that I will do what I said I'm going to do. It's to stay congruent. But I've also learned that when I don't do the thing, that I move on and forgive myself faster. So again, we go back to that discipline. Like I work out 9 times a week. Like I get up and ride 3 days a week. I get up and go strength train 3 days a week, and I go to Taekwondo 3 days a week. So I have 9 workouts a week. It's only a fraction what I used to do. It's only a fraction what I really want to do.
Right.
But when I miss a workout, like this morning, I didn't set the alarm. No idea why. And I just text my coach, who's kind of a big, scary guy. Used to be a police officer, and he's a mammoth of a man. And he's just like, coach, I forgot to set the alarm. I'll see you Friday. He's like, we have to get you on that set alarm and this. And like, he starts like coaching me. And I was like, cool, but some days I get up at 4:15, some days I get up at 5, some days I'll get up at 7 or 8 or whenever I get up. So it's kind of that, again, that love for yourself and just realizing like, hey, if I'm on point discipline 95% of the time, if I slack sometimes, who cares?
That idea, and you mentioned this before, and it made me think about one of the goals that I wrote down for myself, because I frame things through alliteration. I'm big on alliteration. I'm big on acronyms because it's the only way that this ADD mind can actually remember things. It's like my own personal hack. And so I look at things when around goals. We've got faith, we've got family, we've got fun, we've got fitness, we've got finances, and then founder, which is more of the entrepreneurial side. But on the faith, one of my goals I wrote down was fully love myself like God loves me. Because that's been a hard thing for me over the years. And I think what you're talking about, this idea of forgiveness, is so critically important, because when we are looking to achieve, when we are looking to level up business, and we don't do it in the context of time that we have set out for ourselves, then that's when we start to fall back into
yeah, brother. I have this still from last year from Platinum. Like that was my first goal, right? There's my big goal of the year. Not even close. Like I set all the foundation to grow there into the future. But that's one of the things I found when I measure and monitor the outcomes, like where I'm trying to go financially or where I'm trying to go with a certain amount of growth. It doesn't have any relevance to what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis to go out and build relationships, build community, build foundation for education. Like all of the work that was actually done was incredible. There was so much incredible work to be proud of. Like I didn't have a podcast last year. I I didn't have a webinar. I didn't have a YouTube channel. I didn't have all the things now that's supporting my, my tribe. I didn't have the vision. I didn't have a lot of the things. I didn't brand myself. There's so much. I used to hate coming on something like this. 10 years ago or 15 years ago, I was too shy to call. My rule was I was too shy to call and order pizza from someone. It's like, hey, James, you do it. I don't want to talk to a stranger. I love people, but I don't want to talk to strangers. And now I realize I get to talk for a living. I get to do this for a living, and I love it.
I love that last piece of perspective here, because it does give you perspective. Perspective is a sum of context and framing, and it allows you to be able to measure the progress of where you've come from. Like you said, last year, you didn't have, the brand, you didn't have the podcast. And I want to just give you a minute, because those watching, listening, they obviously listen to podcasts. What's the podcast that you have, so that they can also tune into what you're sharing, so that they can continue to learn from you, so that they can level up themselves as a husband, as a father, as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, thank you for that. It's called Wealthwise Banking. You find it on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. So Wealthwise Banking. Pretty easy.
Go find it. Go subscribe to it. As we wrap up here, I want to send everyone off with something practical that they can apply in their own lives, based upon everything that we've talked about today, from setting a vision, to pausing and pondering and thinking, to being disciplined to do difficult things. What's the one thing that you would recommend someone watching or listening can do next on their own entrepreneurial journey to level up business?
I love that. I'd say pick a date. Whatever's been on your mind that you haven't done, pick a date, put it on your calendar, and get it done. You will thank yourself later. Just get it done. If you don't know how to do it, what's that?
Can I add to that?
Yeah, please.
Pick a date, put it on your calendar when you're going to get it done, and then go tell someone about it.
Amen. Yeah, go tell someone. Go share with someone that you've decided that you're going to do it.
Make it public. Share it, because I know that the big things I've ever done in my life, or when I have made it public, I did pick the date, I did the thing, but then I made it public, because like you said before, you talk about the cold plunge. It's where you get the congruency. Confidence comes from doing what you say you're going to do. So Jason, I'm so grateful for being able to share time with you. Thank you for the wisdom, the perspective that you've shared from your entrepreneurial journey. I'm so grateful for you, buddy.
Grateful for you too, JR. This is awesome. Thank you.
This has been a lot of fun. And once again, if you want to continue to grow on your own journey, if you want to continue to level up your business, get a copy of my book, Banking on Change. I'll send you a free copy. Send me a text, 832-549-5792. You'll level up your mind. You'll level up your marketing. You'll level up your sales. You'll level up your business.